Hi there, welcome to What and Series 14, and we're up to number 35. We're looking at Genesis 18. The story continues of the way that God interacts with Abraham and Sarah. Remember, Sarah had a name change last week. And here it's going to be talking about them getting visited, okay? In my Bible, the heading goes, Abraham welcomes some drop-in visitors. It says, and we're going to look at verses 1 to 5 here, Abraham invites the Lord and two others to a meal. Then the Lord appeared to him by the terebinth trees in Mamre, as he was sitting in front of the tent door in the heat of the day. So he lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, 3 men were standing by him. And when he saw them, he ran from the tent door to meet them, and bowed himself to the ground and said, My Lord, if I have found favor in your sight, do not pass by your servant. Please let a little water be brought, wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree. And I will bring a morsel of bread that you may refresh your hearts. After that may pass by, inasmuch as you have come to your servant. They said, Do as you have said. Okay. Notice it says, then the Lord appeared. Apparently, this happened a short time after the events of chapter 17. In verse 17 and verse 21, God said Sarah would give birth 1 year later, and at this time she was not yet pregnant. So this couldn't have been more than 3 months after that event in Genesis 17. It says there too, then the Lord appeared to him by the terebinth trees. Here again, the Lord came to Abram in a human appearance. This is another presentation of Jesus in human form before his incarnation, which is a bit of a spin out for us. But here, the 3 men were visiting Abraham. And we can assume that this was God in the person of Jesus appearing to Abraham before his incarnation and birth at Bethlehem. We assume this because God the Father, it says, no one's seen God at any time. The only begotten Son who is in the bosom of the Father has declared that. And no man has seen God in person as God the Father. Therefore, if God appeared in human form in the Old Testament, well, that would make sense that it is a pre-incarnate version of Jesus, the eternal Son, the second part of the Trinity, and it's before he was born. And crikey, doesn't God do some weird stuff? You see, the appearance comes near the terebinth trees of Mamre. This was a significant place in Abram's life. He had moved to Mamre when he came back into the promised land from Egypt, and he built an altar there. That's in Genesis 13. And apparently he had stayed there for some time. Genesis 14 says that. And further down the track, Abraham purchased a field in a cave at Mamre, and that's where he buries Sarah, his wife. Abraham himself was also buried there, and his son Isaac is buried in that same place. It goes on in those verses that we read, behold, 3 men were standing by him. Though we don't know if Abraham immediately understood the identity of his visitors, he did honour the leader of the 3 men as his superior, and you notice that he bowed himself down to the ground. It says there too, though the Lord, in the person of Jesus, appeared to Abram twice before, Genesis 12 and Genesis 17, we don't know if Jesus looked the same each time, or if Abraham simply knew or recognised who it was by some sort of intuition or spiritual knowledge. It appears from the text that Abram knew who he was talking to. Notice what he did. He ran from the tent and went out to meet them. According to his godliness and the custom of his culture, he was enthusiastically offering his hospitality of his tent to these travellers. Verses 6 to 8 goes on, and this is where Sarah and Abraham prepare a meal for the visitors. It says, so Abraham quickly hurried into the tent to Sarah and said, "Quickly, make 3 measures of fine meal, knead it and make cakes." And Abraham ran to the herd and took a tender and good calf and gave it to a young man and hastened to prepare it. So he took butter and milk and the calf which he had prepared and set it before them. He stood there under the tree as they ate. You see, there's an urgency here. Abraham hurried into the tent. Abraham's urgency seems to go beyond the great sense of hospitality that was common at the time. Abraham understood there was something special about these 3 guys. Yeah. Abraham ran to the herd. Though Abraham and Sarah hurried to prepare this meal for their visitors, it still took a considerable time to make and serve the food. I mean, it's not like going to the supermarket and throwing on the barbie. They had to actually butcher the animal as well. The sense is that Abraham and Sarah themselves did this work instead of insisting on the servants do it all for them.